Good morning, everybody. This is Laura Peterson, your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio, and I'm from Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. And to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407 566 2555. That's 407 566 2555. So I apologize if my quality isn't quite as good as usual. I am, instead of at my studio, I am actually on the road in Dallas at a conference, learning as I like to do in regards to how I can serve people better and all of that kind of good stuff. So that's what's going on right now. And I actually am on Monday, which is tomorrow, is actually going to be at the Florida Realtor Convention. And I have a booth there. So if you are a realtor and you want to stop by, I would love to see you. I believe my booth number is 839. And so I'd be happy to see you there if you're coming to the booth. Stop on by and see us, and that would be great. And it's not open to the public, otherwise, I would invite all of you there. But it is for realtors that's there. It's the Florida Realtor Convention that they do every year. It's at Shingle Creek in the convention center, is where they've got that at the Rosen Shingle Creek. And so that's the scoop. So I'm going to get started on the stats in regards to what's going on with the market. And basically, the bottom line is that the single family homes, there were 422 of them that sold last week, and that's up from 361 the week before, which is good. There were a very high number that sold the week before that because it was the end of the month. And so basically, even though we're heading towards the end of the month again, basically the number that was there were 422 last week versus 361. The median price went to 445. It was, I believe, at 430 or thereabouts last week, or maybe even a little bit lower. And that's what it just brings to mind, that basically everything just shifts within a week, that it's just within a range. And we're kind of in that range. So we're kind of going between 420, 430 up to, maybe 470 on a week and that kind of thing. But we're at like 445 this week, which is right in the middle. And so we're staying very consistent. And it's been that way really since about 2021, that we've stayed very consistent with our prices. And the inventory decreased by 45, so that takes us to 9235. So how that all shakes out and what that means is that we're sitting at 5 months of inventory with the number of homes that sold this week. So that's right in the normal range between 4 and 6. So that means that buyers have choices. Sellers have to be very, very price aware when it comes to their houses. And one of the things that I was looking at and determining and everything that at my conference here in Dallas is that we were talking about, how to make those houses that don't sell. And so we have a whole game plan in regards to doing that. And it's nothing new, but, as the market changes, you always have to be aware of what you were doing before and what you need to do now to make things better. And so that's absolutely, what this was all about. But getting back to the stats, of the 422 that sold, there were 41 under 250, 26 between 250 and 300, 100 between 300 and 400, 96 between 400 and 500, 126 between 500 and a million, and then over a million, we had 33. So that's what the scoop is on that. The months of inventory, 5.05 overall, but under 250, we're at 3.37 months. And then we go to 4.7 for between 250 and 300, 4.41, 4.6, 6.17 between 500 and a million, and 6.39 over a million. So basically, that comes down to, in my opinion, an affordability factor. is in all likelihood in regards to why there are more months of inventory there, because it's what people can afford. And with the current interest rates, which I saw they were somewhere around 6.5 right now, then that's something that is out there in regards to all of that. Now, the list to ask price ratio is at 96.22, which is down a little bit because it's been very much at 97. So when you're at the under 250, they're at 90.43, and that's one of the lower ones. And then the over a million is at 93.77. So they're lower than normal, the 90.43 for under 250 for sure. But then when you look at all those middle price ranges, all the way from 250 to a million, they're all in the 97s, 97.32, 0.49, 0.54, and 0.31. So basically, when it comes down to it, we're still, even though it looks like it's a little bit more room, and maybe that's something we should pay attention to, it's just on the low end and the high end, which it always is. So you might wonder, well, why is that? And the low end, they usually need some work, so they're going to get low ball offers. And the high end, people want to change things, so it always seems to be that that's what happens there as well. Okay, so moving on to the condos, townhomes, and villas. There were 115 that sold last week, 111 the week before, and the price is at 245.9, which is down from last week, which was, I think, in the 270s. So again, it varies week to week. We're only looking at 100 properties that sold, and so basically, when you're looking at it, it definitely makes a difference in regards to what you're thinking and all of that kind of good stuff. So you've got to look at the trends is what we're trying to see in regards to what's going on, and that's what we're always looking for. However, the months of inventory of the condos, townhomes, and villas is at 8.98, which is definitely a buyer's market. So when you're looking at that, if you're a condo owner and you want to sell it, you definitely have to be aggressive in regards to what's going on and what you're going to do to sell that property. And that's what I'm constantly talking to my sellers about in regards to what we need to do to make it happen. So 8.98 months of inventory. And when you're looking across the board, under 250, there's 7 months. When you're going to 250 to 300, there's 9 months. 300 to 400, 9.74. 400 to 500, 15.87. 500 to a million is 14.63. And over a million is 3.92. But you might say, wow, that's pretty good for over a million. All right, so there was one that sold. There are 17 on the market. And last week, there weren't any that sold. So if we're looking at averaging out the month and everything just with the last 2 weeks, we would be at 8 months of inventory. So that's why I'm saying that, the stats can kind of be skewed if you're not looking for where things are going or where they are and all that kind of good stuff. The surprising thing is that the property's list to ask price ratio is still about the same as the single family homes at 96.17. Under 250, they are again low at 94.45, and over a million is at 93.32. And then it's at 97s across the board for all the other price ranges. So it really mimics those single family homes, which is kind of a surprise to me. Now, the average days on the market for a condo right now is at 85, and the average days on the market for a single family home is sitting at 64. So basically almost another month for those properties that are selling, that sell. But like I said, there's a boatload of inventory out there. And sometimes it's because of the condo fees. Sometimes it's just, there's a lot of people. The condo fees are kind of significant when you're looking at them. And when you have to include that in regards to your payment if you're getting a loan, it makes the houses much more affordable in many cases. So just want to make sure that everybody's aware of that. But if you'd like to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and I'll see you after the break. Good morning, everybody. This is Laura Peterson, your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm from Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, and to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So I wanted to talk today about a program that's out there for first-time home buyers, and it's called Hometown Heroes. And it is it's reopened, so eligible first-time buyers can receive up to $35,000 for down payments and closing costs through the Hometown Heroes housing program. And so basically, $50 million was just funded for the program, and applications for the program opened last Monday, for up to 5% of the total first mortgage loan amount, maximum of $35,000, minimum of $10,000, towards down payment and closing costs for frontline and essential workers. The Florida legislature included the new first responder occupation restrictions this year to ensure those employed in critical service roles have a chance to obtain the home buying assistance before the money runs out. So as the applicants must be a person employed full-time by a Florida-based employer as a healthcare worker, a school staff member, first responder, public safety or court employee or child care worker, and a service member of the U.S. military or military reserves, the Coast Guard and its reserves, or the Florida National Guard, or a veteran employed full-time by the Florida-based employer. So that's kind of a really quick summary in regards to what it is. So if you are interested in it and it's something that you want, now is a good time to actually jump in to get that amount. So basically, when it comes down to it, the way that I understand it, and I could be wrong, it doesn't give me the details here, but I'm quite sure that it does not have any payments until you sell the house or your first loan is paid off. So that's basically what it is. So it's a great deal for a lot of people out there, and all the people that help us and might not be paid as much as they should be. And so as a result of that, they can get this Hometown Hero benefit that helps you buy a house if you're a first-time buyer. So just go ahead and reach out to me, and I'd be more than happy to help you with that when it comes down to it. So basically, that's what it is when it comes down to that. There's always new things that are happening when we're looking at what is going on, and basically that's what the bottom line is. So overall, in the state of Florida, the July housing median prices and sales were down. No major shifts in trends as seen in past months, as economic uncertainty and mortgage interest rates hover around 6.5%, which remains a factor. Now, I heard something just a couple of days ago that said that basically that what was going on is that the interest rates are predicted to go down. But if they do go down by the Fed, that doesn't mean that the mortgage rates will go right away. So you have to be aware of that and everything as well. One thing that I definitely want to talk about today, though, is a fraud that's going on out there in the marketplace. I mean, you might see commercials where they're saying, hey, protect your house and all of that kind of good stuff. And there's nothing against any of them. I mean, if that's something that you want to do, you know, a lot of people keep their eyes on their credit on a daily basis to see what's going on with that on Credit Karma or other type services like that. And so, you know, keeping track of what's going on with your house is a big thing as well. You know, on a lot of those commercials, they're like, it's just a single piece of paper. And in many ways it is. That basically if someone does have a notarized change of property on a deed or something, and they take it to the courthouse, and like I said, it's been notarized and everything like that, then basically the bottom line is that the county has to record it, and so then that person, what they're saying is that they go out and they get loans on your property, and as a result of that, you don't even know anything about it until after it's all said and done. That somebody might be foreclosing on the property and you never got the money because the money went to the person who did the fraudulent things. So those kinds of things do exist and everything. We don't run into them a lot, but they do run into situations when it comes down to it. Now, one of the things that they talk about is wired fraud scams. So I don't know how people find out there in that world that you're buying a house. And so today, when you're buying a house, and whether it's the down payment or if you're paying cash for the whole thing, then the money does need to be wired today, because the funds that the title company or the attorney or whatever has in order to complete the document, they need to have them cleared by the time they can do it. And the fastest and the best way to do that is wire transfer. I know I've had a lot of people say, hey, can't we just do an ACH, which is an automated clearinghouse, is what I think it stands for, basically through the bank that sends money. But those actually are reversible, just like if you would charge it on a credit card, you could decline the charge. And then as a result of that, it's like you've already got possession of the house or whatever. So the best way that they found to do that is wire transfers. And 15, 20 years ago, they used certified checks or cashier's checks and all of that kind of stuff, but they were susceptible to fraud and that kind of thing. So wire transfers is what it is. But the problem with the wire transfer is that that someone might give you the wrong number and then you send it to the wrong account. And that's what the challenge is with the wire transfer. And so you want to make sure that you are sending it to the right place. So a lot of times what happens today is that the title company or the attorney is going to send you in a secure email basically what the wire instructions are that you can print out and take to your bank. And then they ask you to call them as you're making the wire transfer to make sure that that everything is right and all of that kind of good stuff. And when you're sending, hundreds of thousands of dollars, it makes sense that you want to make sure that it's going to the right place. And so that's not an oddball thing to do, is to call and verify. So wire fraud scams are one of the things where fraudulent things happen. Deed fraud and theft, and that's typically involving vacant land owned by an out of state or country owner or something like that nobody's there. And so basically, we ran into one of those situations where somebody sold a piece of land through us that they had Florida driver's license and everything, with the name of the people that owned the land. The bank account that the money went to was their name on it, the people that owned the property. And so it was quite interesting. The title insurance did kick in and paid the buyer back their money, and the seller got their land back. But thankfully it was before anybody built anything on it or anything, and so that would have been a bigger mess than it actually was. And so we go through precautions and all of that kind of stuff now to make sure that the people that are actually selling the property do own it and that kind of thing. One of the things that I do is I send a letter to the tax address saying, hey, is this you, and all of that kind of stuff, to make sure, because like I said, we had already had the driver's license and all kinds of stuff that proved that they were supposedly the owner, but they really weren't. Then there are email phishing scams that you guys are all aware of that, like don't open this or open this. Pig butchering, which I had not heard of. And this commonly starts with a seemingly innocent contact The scammer then builds a rapport with the victim, flaunts their financial savvy, and ultimately directs the victim to fraudulently cryptocurrency platform or whatever. So I hadn't heard of that. And then fake listing and rental scams, that those are out there quite a bit, that they'll create attractive but fake listings, and they are used to lure suspecting renters, and the goal is to typically steal deposits. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that out there. So I get calls quite frequently from people that say, "Hey, is this really for rent, or is this really, for sale?" And I'm happy to check it out for you, to double check, to make sure that you're not working with a scammer. I'm not a police officer, so I don't really know, or a detective, but I can check some channels to see if it looks like it's real and that kind of stuff. But it goes back to the old common sense thing. If it looks like it's too good to be true, it probably is, and you don't want to get burned in the end. So in order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and we'll see you after the break. Welcome back, everybody. This is Laura Peterson, your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm from Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, and to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So one of the things that I found this week was that Florida stands out for fun and recreation. The state ranks among the most fun in the nation, leading in restaurants, attractions, and festivals, offering residents plenty of activities and recreation options. Now, we didn't come in number one. We came in number two, and California actually came in number one. But so we were the second most fun state in America for 2025, according to Wallet Hub. And we led the country in the number of restaurants, amusement parks, arcades, and music festivals per capita. So basically, we're living in one of the most fun states, can boost your mental, physical, and emotional health by giving you a wide range of activities to choose from, both indoor and outdoor. These states help residents stay active and socialize, and they're also ideal for travelers who want to make the most of a limited amount of time that they have to explore. So Florida has the fourth most attractions per capita and the seventh best variety of arts, entertainment, and recreation establishments. It's also the 12th best in weather overall, and has the most marinas per capita and the second most miles of shoreline. And Floridians spend yearly about $2,300 per year on recreation expenses. California, like I said, was number one, and West Virginia was ranked 50th. So I don't know, it's like you can have fun wherever you are, but I do think that we do have a lot of choices and a lot of options and everything. I moved here from Chicago, which was also a great place to live, at the time and everything. I loved it there while I was there. It was really fun. I've been here for 25 years now. So basically, Florida is definitely home. And when you look at it, there are a lot of things to do. When you go to the airport and everything, and a couple of the food courts, it's got like some trivia questions and stuff like that. And it's like, how many days would it take you in Central Florida to do everything? And I believe that the answer was 69 days if you were going to do everything that was just in Central Florida where we are. So that's like if you spent a day at each theme park, and that would take up probably about 12 or 15 right there that I can think of off the top of my head, and probably even up to 20. And then, all of the different attractions that are on 192 and that are on International Drive, let alone all of the things that exist in all the cities around Central Florida that are great, whether it's, in Winter Park, where they've got that scenic boat ride and all of those kinds of things that exist out there. And, there's sculpture gardens and museums and all kind of things that are out there to do. And I don't even know if they were included, on the list. So the thing is that, school's back in session, but it is Labor Day weekend next weekend, and so that means it's just time to have a good time, enjoy your friends and family, and do something that basically is here because you're in Florida, and we have the 12th greatest weather, which I would agree. For most of the year, it's very pleasant and everything here. We might have a storm here and there that comes through, but so far this year we're doing good. And but basically, when it comes down to it, I think it's where you are, who you're with, and all of that kind of stuff. When it comes to housing and what people choose, a lot of times they do look for those activities that are there. But a lot of times people are looking for those activities if they're coming here by themselves, like they're just deciding that they're moving to the area. And so it's better for them to be in a place where they can meet people. Because a lot of times, today it's like when it's hot outside, you're not hanging out outside. You're just, hanging out inside doing what you've got to do. So basically, when it comes down to it, you want to make sure that that you're living in a place and you find the place that's got the activities that you want. But what I find is that a lot of people move to close to their work, close to their friends, close to their family, close to their church. They want to be, close to those things. And that's what makes a difference for people. And so a lot of times, they might say, hey, I want to move further out because I want to, save on my housing and that kind of stuff. And they get there, and some people really like it and some people don't. So it comes down to really, I think, when you're choosing a house, which is kind of coming around full circle here, is that you've got to look at all of the factors that are going to work for you. Are you a driver? Do you like to drive? Are you okay with driving, 15, 20, 30 minutes to do different things? Or is it something that you want to be there in 5 minutes? And I've worked with people that are both. They want to be somewhere within 5 or 10 minutes of where something is, or they're okay with being, 20, 30, 40 minutes away. And so, basically it comes down to really determining what that is for you, and then, going ahead and making that happen. I remember I was working with a couple of years ago, and basically, they had moved to the area, but they had their 3 points that they wanted to stay at. They had a private school for the kids, they had their church, and they had the place where they worked. And so basically that ended up being a triangle. And so they wanted to find a house that was within those limits, because so somewhere, within that triangle, that to everything was going to be 30 minutes. And basically when you're clear in regards to what that is and how that's going to look for you, it makes it a lot easier to go ahead and not make a bad decision in your purchase options. And they're happy with what they've got and everything like that. But basically it comes down to really looking at what it is that you want to do, making that decision, and going from there in order to make things happen. And obviously affordability comes into play in regards to what's going on. When I give the stats at the beginning of the show, and we're looking at how much it is for a single family home on average, obviously there are houses that are a lot more than that and houses that are a lot less than that. And so when you're looking at it, you have to figure out what's going to work for you and your budget. And you might even be able to afford a lot more than you're going to purchase, but you want to make sure that you've got a specific, number in mind, because you know what you want to do with it. I was working with a gentleman earlier this week that is purchasing a property, and he's under contract now. And he actually wanted to get a property that had that basically had all of the amenities and everything there. And his cousin lived in the same development, and so it worked out as a win-win, because had somebody else that was here. He's only going to use it part time, but he actually bought it in that Champions Gate development because golf comes with it. So it's included in your HOA payment. So you don't have any fees at all for golf, and that was very attractive to him. And so that's what we did. And it did have an assumable mortgage at 2.75, which was the other thing that kind of clinched it for him, that he decided that, hey, I can, if I can get it with that low of a payment because it's 2.75, then that's something that he was interested in. So, but I am going to come up in the next segment and talk about a new product that we have from the lending side that I think will help you as well. So, in order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555, and I will see you after the break. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Laura Peterson, your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm from Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, and to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So I was talking last segment about some options, and this is something that I have available for buyers, and I also have it available for sellers. So for sellers, if the buyer uses our preferred lender, then what we can do is we can offer a buy down of the rate quite easily, and it's just a 1% buy down, and it's around $6,000, I believe. So basically, we can have the seller cover that in closing costs and that kind of thing, and makes a big difference for the buyer if to buy down that rate, and it actually improves who can afford that home because it's based on their payment, right? Not based on necessarily the price of the home, like I was talking about in the last segment, that I had that assumable loan that this guy is buying this place at 2.75%, which the average right now is 6.5. So if he were to refinance it, basically that's kind of what the rate would be. And so instead, he's going to get this 2.75. So there are quite a few houses out there with assumable loans. When I was looking at the area about a week ago, there's about 100 or more that have that 2.75 or 3 or 4 interest rate that are out there. So if that is something that you're interested in resale properties that have them, then let me know. I can certainly help you with that. In addition to that, there's a lot of builders that are offering reduced rates when it comes to financing as well. There was one of them that I saw that had 3.99, and that is for a 7-1 arm. So that means that the rate's going to be the same for 7 years, and then it's going to go up by 1% every year. It can to go up to what the market rate is. And then there's another one that they're doing that's a 4.99 fixed. So that's fixed for 30 years. So basically what I'm trying to tell you is that there are options out there that might get your payment down, that give you more affordability than what you thought you could have. And when it comes down to it, you need to definitely just look at all of the options. So I ran into this story that I thought was fascinating. And it is where HOA speed cameras are raising legal questions. So a growing number of Florida HOAs are using license plate readers and speed cameras to find speeders on private roads, prompting legal and privacy concerns. So what's happening is there is a place in Sarasota, I believe, that this article is about, and the subdivision captured a car going 39 miles an hour in a 25 zone. And so what they got is a fine in the mail for $125, issued not from a police or the sheriff, but from the neighborhood HOA, and that controls the street. So the way that this works is that they began issuing speeding tickets using automated license plate readers and speed capturing cameras, penalizing not only residents but anyone who drives through the neighborhood. It's part of a growing national trend encouraged by private technology companies that want to obviously sell their services. And so, for years, law enforcement has turned to the technology to monitor speeds and school zones and check motorized plates for outstanding warrants and catch others breaking the law. But now private HOAs are getting into the action. So basically, the Homeowners Association fines may not exceed $100 per violation against any member or any member's tenant, guest, or invitee. And it also has a maximum of $1,000 for a continuing violation. The fees imposed by this community raised to $200 for speeds of 41 miles or greater and all that. So instead of going in front of a judge, you're going to go, they have to give you the 14-day notice and a hearing before a neutral committee, and in this case, a homeowners board, which must dedicate a majority vote if the fine is justified and notify the driver within 7 days. But unlike a ticket from a government authority, failing to pay the fine, you're not going to get points on your license or anything like that. But it's going to be further HOA board action and all of that could happen, that could go as they could prohibit a certain vehicle from entering their subdivision or liens on the property if you live there. So they're not, that this is not the only subdivision. There are other ones. An expert who track technology in policing say that increasing use of these cameras and their spread to homeowner groups or other private buyers has created a Wild West situation with no oversight or private personal data. So interesting, right? So never helps to speed. Always should go the speed limit and all of that kind of good stuff. But just, it's like I tell everybody all the time when we're out looking at houses, you just have to plan that there's going to be cameras there. And now you have to plan that there could be cameras as you're going down within a gated community and you could be getting a ticket. I'm sure they have to have a sign there that posts that they're doing that. And then they are kind of acting like policemen. They have the homeowners board that has to vote if, you really deserve that ticket or not. And so I think that's going to blow up in people's faces eventually, probably, because, you're going to have, they might have some favoritism that if they can prove that, then that's going to throw a whole wrench into it. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But like it says here, it's kind of the Wild West at the moment. So I'll leave you guys at that. Just remember, if you are a realtor and coming to the Florida Realtor Expo, I do have a booth there. I believe it's 380 or 839. And so we look forward to seeing you there, and I will be with you next week. Have a great one, everybody. If you want to get in touch with us, our phone number is 407-566-2555, and you can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com. See you next week. Bye-bye.